us as we're recording. It's the evening. Want to just introduce you. My name's Dan Klein. I'm the assistant rector here at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. Thanks for joining in for this week's installment of Clergy Corner Conversations. And we've got two of our parishioners here, Van Williams and Louella Whitaker. Van and Louella, thank you for joining us today.
Yes, I'm
No
happy to participate. Thank you for asking me and Louella as a team. So
Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah, you guys are both really, really good friends. And I remember finding out the first time about that. I think I remember calling Louella, your mom, and she's like, "Oh, Van lives right next door and he's excited to be a confirmation sponsor." And I had no idea, how close you guys live, like right around the corner. So could you tell us your story about how you became such good friends? Did you know each other as neighbors before St. Paul's, or did you find out you were neighbors through meeting at St. Paul's?
We knew each other, our families, before St. Paul's. Stephen, Andre, and I had been living here a couple of years, and the neighbors that owned the house that Bob, Louella, and Hillary live in had sold it to them. And it had to have been in July, Louella, because I remember you had just turned 3.
Yeah, we moved in on my birthday.
Yeah. And
July
so,
1st, yeah.
yeah. And so that's when I got to meet Louella and Bob and Hillary, the very important part. And I have one of the photos of the first time that we all met. And Louella had just turned 3, as I said, and it just was just within a short period of time, we became very good friends. Now think about it. Now I'm in my 60s and Louella is 3 years old, and I would be out in the back gardening, and all of a sudden I would hear this little pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter. Hi, Van, what you doing? And of course I was out there gardening, and she would, just watch me, and then all of a sudden she wanted to start helping, and it just grew from that. And just feeling really blessed by the fact that her mom and dad were just really thrilled that Louella had found somebody in the neighborhood, because there were only a few children at the time.
Yeah.
And so on the weekends, while I was out working in the yard, Louella would come join me for a little bit. So
Yeah, and so Van and Steven had been going to St. Paul's before we moved in, and then they actually introduced us to St. Paul's, and we went to the rummage sale, and there they introduced us to Jim Vondelid and said that he was the husband of the woman who was running the Godly Play. And my parents have been, well, I don't remember this, but they told me that they have been looking for a church that had a Sunday school. So yeah, so they introduced us to Jim, and then I started taking Godly Play. So that's kind of how I started. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's so cool. So you started out as neighbors and you got involved in the rummage sale, and that kind of led to you being involved in Godly Play. And Van, you'd already been a part of St. Paul's for a number of years at that
yes,
point in time.
yes, yeah. And it really was also part of, I believe, Bob and Hillary going on the website. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they saw either Stephen or I on the website when they went to the
Oh,
website.
I didn't know that.
And asked about it, and then that also was how it talked about Godly Play and talked about Marty Bondelit. And then it just happened to be Kismet when Hillary and Louella were at the rummage, and from there made the connection with Marty, and so it just all was just like a full circle.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Like where this path of being neighbors kind of connects with being neighbors in a spiritual sense. And in the Christian tradition, one of our main tenets is love your neighbor as yourself. And we all often think about that in terms of, oh, like a stranger or someone random. But that also includes our literal next door neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And so how what have been some ways that being neighbors have impacted your faith since that initial kind of connection with St. Paul's? And how has your faith impacted being neighbors?
You know, I think for me, just the fact that um, knowing that St. Paul's was a very important part of our life here, Stephen, Andre, and I, and um, just by um, talking about it and you know just mentioning it and just letting through our faith and through just the opportunity for things to fall into place. And it really did. It wasn't a matter of me going out and, pushing St. Paul's on Bob or Hillary or any of our neighbors, but just by the fact of us talking sometimes about church, talking about our connection with community, and it just happening and doing it in a very natural way. Um, and having an opportunity, Stephen, Andre, and I, to really connect with Bob, Hillary, and Louella, and in such a meaningful way, and sharing the holidays, sharing dinners, and actually, over time, Louella moved from helping me to garden to helping me bake. That's why she's such an amazing baker to this day. Some of the pictures, if you get an opportunity to use them, you'll see that evolution from gardening to baking to being involved at church. It's just a natural evolution of us being neighbors and being supportive of one another. Luella, things that were important to you and the things that we did together.
Yeah, and I think we came like even closer with our connection with St. Paul's, and we would do stuff that related to that. Like you said, we would bake and we would make cookies and stuff for the exchange and different stuff. And Stephen was in the is in the choir, and when I was in the choristers, we would go together, and he was always like there, so that was nice because I knew one of the adults. And then yeah, and then now he's like my confirmation sponsor, so it's kind of all connects a little bit to
Yeah.
St. Paul's.
Yeah, I was really honored when Luella asked me, because it's very funny. Hillary said, well, Luella wants to ask you something. And and it was just natural. And I just, in a way, no, not in a way. I mean, there have been times that I have gone to Hillary and just started talking, and then I just got filled up with tears of joy of being in a situation where they have shared Luella with Stephen, Andre, and I, and being so close and being an important part of how we modeled, a different family dynamics and things along that line that was just all natural to her. And one of the things I really appreciated is that when Louella came into our life and moved into the neighborhood, she had already been exposed to diversity in how she grew up on South Street and how her parents had, introduced her to a lot of neighbors of different backgrounds, so that it was a natural. And she met me that, we just sort of connected and just had good times together. And it wasn't matter this like, this older African-American man taking an interest in letting her gardening with me or baking with me, and feeling like I had a chance to pass on that somebody did with me when I was growing up. So,
I I think that's so cool because at one of the big lessons, I mean, we just did a godly play lesson this last week called The Great Family. And one of the children in the godly play lesson said, what I took away from that is, family is so much bigger than what we think. And I think that's such a thing. As people of faith, it's reminding us that there is a family that's so much bigger, that everyone is each other's family. And so it impacts, it's kind of cool to see, how your neighbors and your faith and all of that, it just blends, so well together. And I think the thing that really stands out to me with some of that, I mean, all those things speak to your faith, but I remember hearing that Louella was going to be doing the fundraiser on the block for Black Lives Matter. Could you tell us some more about the nightly vigil that kind of started on your block in Mount Airy this summer, and how the Black Lives Matter fundraiser you did happened? What did you learn from that? How did that even come together?
Okay, so the fundraiser. So I had an idea, and well, I actually kind of from confirmation, I had when we were kind of discussing the current events, it kind of got me thinking, like if there was something that I could do, and I had lots of free time, so I thought if I could like make stuff, because I like creating stuff with my hands and stuff. So I thought if I could do that and then sell it, then the profits I could donate to a cause that I was interested in. And so I kind of wanted to make it, I kind of wanted someone to help me with the projects. And then I don't know, Van was like definitely a good choice because well, he helps me with a lot of my projects. Um, so I asked him, and then together we kind of started the project, and then more people joined in, and um, we all made things, some together and some each just made things on their own and then brought them in. And then we had a fundraiser day and we sold the things we had made. And yeah, it was really cool because a lot of people um, came, and I don't know, I guess I wasn't expecting that much. Like not the support, but that many people would come out. And like I knew people, especially in our neighborhood, were really supportive of the cause and like the nightly vigil that we can talk about in a sec. Yeah. So, and also we had a GoFundMe, and it was really cool because a lot of people from the church donated on the GoFundMe, and that was really cool to see the that other community like support me. And then a lot of people from the adult choir, and I didn't like we have a connect, the choristers don't always do, we do the services with the adult choir, but we don't rehearse or anything. So it was cool to see that they like knew who I was, and that they're like supportive too, and that's like a community too. Like all of the choir. Does that make sense?
And Luella did an amazing job, Dan, in organizing it, because I can remember getting the emails that gave instructions and walked us along through the things that she needed, and she developed on, was it Google Docs that you
Yeah, with
used?
Google Sheets. Yeah.
Google Sheets. And so we had a way of um, saying what we would donate, and the instructions and everything were so clear. And I went to Hillary and said, so Hillary, did Louella do all of this, writing and organizing? She said, yeah. She said, I just read what she did and told her, yeah, go with it, go for it. And it really, I think part of why it was so successful is because she gave really good, clear instructions and asked in a way that folks felt compelled to be a part of it and knew that it was well organized as well. And Louella and I got a chance to do our photography together, and when we would go out and do sort of nature walks in the neighborhood. And through that, we did the photo cards, which were a big seller. So that was really a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
I remember coming and it was pouring rain at the one point in
Yeah.
time, and then it was sunny, but it was so cool to see. You know, there was still like so many people that were either there in person or virtually, and I was so impressed by what you put together, Luella,
Thank
and
you.
by how you were able to organize everyone. And I just felt really proud to be one of your priests, you
Thank
know,
you.
and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Um, and then you've been having a nightly vigil as well, you said. Could you talk a little bit more about that? How is that? Because I think that's connected to the fundraiser a little bit.
I'll start a little bit
Okay.
about it. Is that um, some neighbors got together and felt that it was important that they have an opportunity to express their support and their sentiments about Black Lives Matter. And it was a situation with family and considerations, particularly with the pandemic, that they didn't feel comfortable going to large rallies or protests. So we felt that it would be nice for us to be able to have an opportunity to do it here on our block, something that was silent and sort of contemplative with candles. And it started out first with us coming out at a designated time in our doorsteps and on our walkway and do it. And then someone suggested, why don't we move it to the end of the block where we have a little more presence? It still being a silent vigil, candlelight, and being contemplative. And through that, it has started to grow. We can have at any given time 25 to 40 people on the four corners. And as cars come by, they support us. Most of it has been supportive. A few times we've had a few that have sort of taken us aback, but we know that, you know, there is a reason why we are there. Um, and so it's been very important. And then we have an opportunity to, on our way back, walking back to our respective homes, we sort of stop and talk and chit chat, and it's developed into us having Zoom meetings so that neighbors get to know more about other neighbors and folks that have been on the block, you know, since the 70s and late 60s, and talking about the transformation and how things were then and how they are now. And it's been great. Louella has been on those and learning things. So Louella, you want to tell a little bit about your experience?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's nice for the whole neighborhood to come together, and it's a chance for us to see our neighbors and talk with them. And then the Zoom is really cool because there's people who've lived here for a really long time, like way before I was even born. So it's really cool to see how, like, what the neighborhood was like back then and how it's developed. And they talked about how there were some people when they first came, people weren't as welcoming and supportive, and how the neighborhoods developed into a neighborhood that is really supportive and welcoming to everyone. So that was really cool. Yeah.
And we have an opportunity as we continue to do these on a monthly basis to really delve into some of the, you know, racial and diversity and, you know, police reform and things that we could do and meet each other where we are in that process and know that we are doing it in a supportive way and nobody's being judged for whatever they choose and however they choose to, you know, reflect on this and look to find ways of having an impact and making an impact towards making change.
Yeah. And
So it's been,
everyone can bring in their own things that they're doing on their own, um, for for the what Van was saying, like how they want to make a difference, and they're sharing it with the group. And so that's definitely like a community that they can count on. So if they come to the people at the vigil with something, everyone will like be behind them. And
Right.
help them with. That's also how the fundraiser was successful, because all the neighbors were really they all came together and showed up on the day. So people have different projects that they're doing for voting or for other things, and they can bring all those ideas to the neighbors, and then everyone will encourage them and like join their team kind of. Yeah.
Hmm. Yes.
That's that's so cool. I think of that as really holy work. And it's got so many layers of what does it mean to be community, and what does it mean to stand up for justice, and to be welcoming, and to have space for dialogue and to learn. And it just amazes me. I think that's how you are living is something we should all aspire to, not only as Christians but just as human beings. um, and so, speaking of learning, what's one thing, Van, that you've learned from Luella?
I think the thing that I've learned from Luella is the fact that there's such a capacity for love in a way that is about um, being a part of and being accepting and really being able to connect. Because, like I said, this was, 3 years old, and, I was in my early 60s. I mean, who would have thought that we would have developed into such a dynamic and wonderful relationship that has sustained her and her family when her dad went on sabbatical, being away in North Carolina, Luella,
Yeah.
for 2 years and
Yeah.
coming back. And when she came back, we just picked up where we left off. Um, it's those kinds of really connections. And so what I've learned from Luella is just the capacity of youth and reaffirmation of how open and accepting youth are, and being able to model to help develop that openness and that loving and trust.
Hmm. That's beautiful. And I'm going to flip the question to you, Luella. What's one thing you've learned from Van?
Oh, a lot of stuff. Well, there's like things like trades and stuff like that, like the baking and the gardening and the photography, but also like having someone who's not technically family, but like who is like your family, and someone who like supports you and you can go to them for like family things. So it's like a bigger family. Like you were saying with the godly play lesson. And Van's kind of an example of that for me. And our family calls him like Uncle Van, but we thought that Uncle wasn't actually accurate because it's more like of dad. So yeah. But that's the idea that like, um, so yeah. And I've learned a lot of he's exposed me to a lot of different like cultures and different like diverse things that we've done. We do a lot of stuff together, and he's exposed me to a lot of things I probably wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise. So that's probably it.
And we do, and we have Stephen and Luella celebrate their birthdays together, because
Yeah.
Stephen's is on the second and Luella's is on the first. And so we always have a tradition of celebrating the birthdays together. And we celebrate my birthday together, which is, I won't say, but in any event. So we always get together for all of our birthdays: Andre, Stephen,
Yeah.
her mom, her dad, mine. And we bring
Thanksgiving,
in, yeah,
Labor Day, we all
yeah,
have those meals
yeah.
together.
We all get together, and also I've had opportunity to introduce her to some of my very close colleagues at work who are like family to me, and now have become, part of Luella's acquaintances, and very important and significant acquaintances. And they're two folks that are in my age range that have just taken to Louella and have just always asked about her, and it's just great. And it's just all part of life, and having the opportunity to be exposed to a diverse um, experiences in life that we here in Mount Airy are blessed to be able to do. And with St. Paul's, just really having a chance to watch her grow and develop in a spiritual way that is about her being an important part of the choir and um, godly play and different things that she gets involved in. So we're really blessed.
Yeah. Well, speaking of choir, Luella, I'm sure it's been tough because there hasn't been choristers like normal this year because of COVID. But thinking about your past experience, what's it been like to be in choristers? What's your favorite part? How's it been
Oh,
being in confirmation? We're doing this Zoom thing. It's probably not the same as being in person. Could you tell us what it's like? I'm sure a lot of our some of our other parishioners just would love to hear your perspective on it all.
yeah, I really like being part of the choir and I really like singing, and that's a really good opportunity because it can invite like one of my interests with like faith. And also, I have friends that are my friends from choir, so it's like a whole nother community that I'm connected with, not just the church but also like I know people from church, but then there's also I know people even better who are in the choir, and we see each other every week, and it's only once a week or sometimes twice, so sometimes I wish I saw them more. But yeah, I really like being part of the choir, and I learn a lot about like music and um yeah, from the director, Dr. Cotillo, and when Zach was here, I learned a lot from them about like music theory and I don't know, just about singing in general, but then also about like the faith and what the words in Latin mean, and like because I never would have known what the words mean that we're singing and how to like um convey that to the congregation through the singing, and kind of leading the church in the song and like taking some leadership with the hymns. And yeah, and then confirmation. Oh wait, one more thing about choir, that when COVID started, it was really nice because it wasn't nice, but choir, it was nice they kept going with choir a little bit. And I actually got to have, for a few weeks, I got to have like a one-on-one with Marissa every week, and I learned a lot from her doing that. So it was really nice that they kept going for a while. We're not doing anything now, but that was really fun. I learned a lot from Marissa doing the one-on-one. And then with confirmation, the first one I went to, I didn't actually go to the in-person one, so I just know it over Zoom. But I think I love doing it every week. And what I like most is probably when we like connect the faith to like the current events and hearing different people my age perspective on the events that are going on. And like I said, that kind of inspired me to do the fundraiser in the beginning. And yeah, learning a lot about the events that I didn't know and hearing everyone what their take on it, and then also how it connects to like religion and the different stories from the Bible, and how we were talking today about like forgiveness and how that connects to the different stories in the Bible, and just how connecting scenarios that we've been a part of or have witnessed to um, the things in faith. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. That makes total sense. You kind of gave a snapshot of both of those programs. And speaking of snapshots, Van has done, a ton of photography, not only around the church but just nature. And how did you get into that, Van? Has that been a passion you've had for a long time? And I know you've passed on a lot of that to Louella as well. What's the story there, Van?
Probably since I was 12 years old. Um, I picked up one of those little brownie cameras. That's what I started out with. And just in my neighborhood where I lived, I would just go out and about and photograph my friends. I have photos from like 1959 that I still have, and I was able to share a lot of those photos of my childhood friends all the way up through high school until I went away to college. And I was able to share them with them on Facebook when Facebook came about, and I was able to create a closed Facebook group with friends from my neighborhood. And it was just amazing how significant it was for them to see photos that they hadn't seen in probably 40 to 50 years of us as youth, and just how it all brought us all back together to talk about things and connect again in such a meaningful way. But yeah, it started as a youth, in my youth, and has continued throughout my life. I just love capturing things around me. And so, and really just sort of being in the background and just watching and capturing, and also in a way helping me to become a part of as well. Um, the photography, someone at church had mentioned that, it was sort of like my ministry, because I just through, probably it was Muffet Stewart at the time, who was the um, parish administrator, and I guess the other person was, oh gosh, and I knew I was going to do this. I can't remember the name now, but they had got me involved in taking photographs and sharing those photographs, and they would put it in the parish newsletter. Um, so something I've been doing for a very long time, and love doing it.
We really appreciate your giftedness. I think both of you. I think Luella, your giftedness in terms of your singing ability and your thoughtfulness in the confirmation class, and Van, I'll never forget you photographed my ordination, and it's those pictures I will have for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
and I'm just so grateful for that gift. And I know all of St. Paul's is, because you can't find a photo on our website or anywhere that wasn't somehow connected to you. And
There are many, but there are others as well, and passing that on, and finding others. You never know. It could be someone in godly play or whatever that's going to pick that up and just go with it. It's just connecting with their interest and having exposure to it. Because kids nowadays with cell phones, the creativity is unlimited.
I think so too. I think you're absolutely right. I think that could be a way we get, some students, who graduate from the children's programs and then kind of enter the next phase and maybe aren't leaning towards music as great as it is, or some other things that could be a way to connect them.
Mhm.
Um, Speaking of connection, we're looking to connect with our new rector. They're on the way, I guess. The search committee is doing a search, and if you had any piece of advice to tell them, how what anything about St. Paul's, how to make it, how to, what something awesome about our community, what would you tell them?
Luella?
Um,
Well, No, that wasn't fair. I will
Oh,
say,
thank
because I know that, yeah, I told you in the beginning that I'm not sure in this one, but for me, I would just say, St. Paul's is just a wonderful community of faith, and we're looking for a rector that, to me, I think I would say, just be present to God's will, to how He will lead he or she in shepherding and leading St. Paul's, which is ready for a new rector to come and take us to the next chapter. Um,
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much for your time. It's been such a joy to hear your story and to hear you tell each other's stories and see like your reaction.
you.
And I think this
yeah,
is really,
right.
we always
Yeah,
learn stuff we don't know about each other, I think
Yeah.
yeah.
until we do this telling of our stories. I think that's what the gospel is. It's telling the good news
Mhm.
to each other. And we're gospeling to each other, sharing some good news. And so thank you to those who are watching at home. And we look forward to seeing you live in our, question and answer on Zoom right after this.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
letting us
you.
be a part of this.